I'm JJ Heller, and this is Instrumental, a show about the big and small moments that shape our lives. In every episode, my guest and I start near the end of their story and work our way back to the beginning. I hope our conversation reminds you that every second matters, because none of us knows which moment will be the one that changes everything.
Big love happens in the small moments.
Hi, everyone. It's JJ.
And her faithful sidekick / husband, Dave.
That just made me picture us wearing superhero costumes and our capes blowing in the breeze.
I was picturing myself wearing a karate, I kept wanting to say dojo. But
like
that's
an
the room.
entire dojo.
What's the white thing that karate people wear?
Oh, I should know this. I took one semester of karate in college.
Karate white form.
Bathrobe thing with the belt.
Oh, it's called a dogi.
Ruff, ruff.
This dogi is a martial arts uniform. See, dojo and dogi, they kind of like...
I've never heard the word dogi before. So we're both wearing dogis.
I'm wearing a dogi. I'm the sidekick.
What am I wearing?
A superhero costume.
Well, we're here wearing weird stuff. We have the privilege of introducing you today to our dear friend, Jeremy Casella. And he is actually the reason why we came to Nashville.
That's right. We met him back in 2005. He was an independent musician playing some music in Arizona.
When we lived there.
We gave him a CD and he was like, hey, you guys should come out and make some music in Nashville. And he introduced us to Mitch Dane, who is one of the early episodes of this podcast. And we owe a lot of your career to Jeremy Casella.
Totally. Yeah, and he was just so kind that first day that we met him because he played a show and then we kind of ambushed him after and just peppered him with questions.
Yeah, I highly recommend that approach. Go find someone smarter than you and ask them for advice.
Jeremy has an incredible story, full of many unexpected twists and turns.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Just a quick reminder, folks, we tell stories backwards, so we're going to start with the most recent chapter of Jeremy's story.
And work our way back in time. Act 3, With You. Jeremy's life fell apart in 2013 as his marriage of 9 years ended in divorce. In 2016, he married his second wife, a widow named Brooke. Jeremy fills us in on what family life looks like now.
Well, when we got married, I was surprised by how hard of a time I had trusting her, which sounds really strange, but I did. I had a part of my mind and my heart that was just constantly thinking that what I was seeing and hearing probably wasn't true. But that was part of my calculus in my head.
Right, from past experience.
Oh, yeah, right. Woundedness, deep woundedness. And for Brooke, it was having a husband again. Having someone in her life, could she trust that that person was going to be there and not be taken from her?
Yeah.
Not that I would ever do anything to her, but that circumstances beyond both of our control would be imposed in one of us or both, would be taken from the other person. So there's this degree of pain that almost is bitter and sort of cynical about good things because you don't really know for sure if it's going to last.
Yeah.
So had we not gotten married, that rub would never have happened, and we wouldn't have been forced to do the work we needed to do to heal from woundedness, And she had 10 plus years of being a single mom, and I think there's just a lot of survival mode that happens. She's walked through a ton of stuff and has seen God be faithful to her. Both of us came to the relationship needing each other. She's very amazing as a mom, and we have 5 children in sum total. We have a daughter who's 23, we have a daughter who's 20, we have a son who's 18, and then the 2 younger ones are 13 and 9. The 3 older ones are from Brooke's marriage to Matt, and Matt had died in 2005 of colon cancer. And so we've got the 3 older kids and the 2 younger kids from my previous marriage. And I think I came to that part of things thinking that God kind of had me in this role of almost like a dad savior, or something. I mean, I wouldn't have articulated that when we got married, but I think in my heart I thought, okay, now they're going to have a dad. You know what I mean?
They've been without one for so long,
Right.
and now I'm here, and it's going to be great.
Right. And they do have a stepdad. That's me, right? And that's great. And that's been really, really good and very unique for each kid because they're adults. All of them are adults now, but the two older ones, they're just different ages, and you don't need a father like you did when you were little, right? When you're in your early 20s or whatever it is. But I've realized very quickly, I am nobody's savior. Jesus is the savior. I'm the stepdad. I'm there to support. I'm there to support my wife, and to support them in that order, and to really honor those relationships. And as time goes on, they'll deepen. But it wasn't just an automatic. Everything's great. I didn't expect it to be that way, but I was surprised at how challenging it is to walk into someone's life like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any vivid memories associated with that? Like the family comes to Kingston Springs
Yeah.
and the moment you realize, oh, here's the reality.
Yeah. So Brooke and the kids lived in inner city Pittsburgh. They lived in one of the poorest neighborhoods of Pittsburgh, and called Marshall Shadeland neighborhood. And they had lived there for 15 years. They moved there to do racial reconciliation ministry in the inner city with Matt as a pastor and with her dad at his church. And after Matt's death, they stayed, and that's where they were for all that time. Marshall Shadeland's predominantly an African-American neighborhood, so they were very much as white people in the minority. Brooke and I got married. She sold her house, packed up her house, drove her down in a U-Haul truck to Nashville, to Kingston Springs, where we live now. Kingston Springs has, I think, like 3 or 4 African-American people in the
Wow.
entire town. It's a completely different environment.
It's a half hour outside of downtown Nashville.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes west of Nashville. It's a beautiful little rural country town.
But it's not downtown Pittsburgh.
That's right. And it's not the north, it's the south. It's predominantly white. It's rural. Very different world for them. And so when we started school, we got married in June of 16, and they started school in August, okay? It's like moving to a foreign country, And I realized pretty soon, oh, wow, there are so many layers of adjustment happening here. They were like, where am I? I'm in a completely different culture. Nothing's familiar for me here, And now I'm in a new house. I'm not where I used to live physically even. I don't even recognize where I go to lay my head at night. There's a lot of adjustment.
How did your kids take to Brooke?
Oh, brilliantly. I mean, they're very young, but also she's amazing with kids, always has been. And they love her. The first year or two, right? Like you're going through a whole calendar year together for the first time, holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right. I will tell you this. I was a kid. I love Christmas. I always have loved Christmas. As a kid, I could never understand when people would say, Christmas is so hard. The holidays are so hard. I'd be like, what is wrong with you people? This is the best time of the year. Let me tell you something. The holidays, and including Mother's Day and Father's Day for us, are very disorienting times. What is my role on Father's Day?
Yeah.
Because it's a day to celebrate. I'm a dad, but I'm also step parent to some kids who don't have their dad. And I'm here, and that's good, but there's also grief.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I don't want the grief. I want the happy day. But wait a minute, it's not about me. So like in real time, you're on Father's Day after 4 years, okay? You're going, oh yeah, okay, I remember this from last one. Okay,
Yeah.
let's be intentional about this today, and let's let these things go. Because in what you call a regular marriage or whatever, you don't have any of that necessarily baggage laying around, but we did from the get-go. So it was almost like you go through the first calendar year, and it's just so challenging because there's nothing familiar.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that first Father's Day?
Well, I felt extremely humbled and grateful for the younger two, Eli and Millie, who are just rambunctious little kids. Millie looks like me. Eli acts like me. It's really unfortunate for him, I think, but he's a wonderful, wonderful kid. It's humbling, right? To see yourself reflect in your kids is the coolest thing. And you just kind of go, wow, like what a weird thing life is and how cool is this? And then humbled to be in Maddie, Grace, and Jackson's lives the way that I get to be. And one of my favorite conversations I've ever had with any of them is the one I had with Madeline, who's 23. We were talking about her dad, and to understand that as Christians, we believe in resurrection and walk with the Lord, no question. And her dad's not dead. He's just not here, and we're here. So let's really be here.
Yeah.
And let's carry both things. Let's carry the grief. Well, let's also carry the joy, because they're both here for us. And we can choose to be here because we are here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think some of those sorts of conversations have come out of our time together as a family. But no one wants to have those conversations.
There's no Hallmark card for that.
No, right? And that gets back to the holidays. It's just so awkward because, like, okay, so here's another one. You set up your Christmas tree. The ornaments are like all from all these different places. The most disorienting thing for me was the first Christmas, I was a mess. Because my Christmas tree is like, I don't recognize anything. I mean, I'm thankful and I'm really happy, but I'm also like really processing grief still.
And they had a box of their ornaments.
That's right. And we had to kind of blend all that together. Now it's fine. Don't get me wrong, but it's just those little tender heart moments, those places where we tend to park our emotional memories, like Christmas or holidays like that, or little things like Christmas ornaments or something. It triggers all that stuff in you, and no one in their right mind wants to live in those places, and we do everything like we can, I think, to avoid it, but the invitation to healing is there, and we have to answer that if we want to grow.
Have you created any new family traditions together?
Yeah, we have. Where we live, right by the river, the Harpeth River. We'll go swim the river together. We got memories that we've been making, how's to put it that way, that are now on the record. They're not, hey, let's do this sometime or this, that. It's, no, remember this, remember that? Those conversations are happening now, and which is really beautiful. But like I said, it hasn't been a walk in the park, like at all. It's been hard. But that's because it's real, And I think sometimes there's this idea that if something is deeply good and blessed by God, it's going to be easy. But that's just not the case. And so we've had our share of some challenges for sure. But even in the midst of that, I think the endurance of learning how to walk together and support one another and love each other, and more than anything, trust the Lord with those things, that's been the game changer for us. And those are some of the memories I would say that we draw on now. One of the big joys of my life when I was going through that terrible season was I learned how to cook, and mostly from Barefoot Casella cookbooks from the food TV show.
Yeah, amazing.
And so I love to cook, and Brooke loves to cook too. But we eat a lot of meals around the table, and Brooke loves conversation, so she's always stewarding that. Like the end of the night, dinner's over, but she'll usually seed some conversation to keep going way past the meal being eaten, And she said to me earlier when we got married that this is huge for us to bond as a family, these meals. And she's right. So we do that. We have a garden, pretty huge garden, that Brooke and I handle, but the kids help us with it. We've renovated our house, which has been a huge project for our whole family. We added a lot to it. We added a ton of space and built on a deck, and that has been a huge part of the last number of years. Literally building a home together, renovating rooms and adding rooms, and I would never want to do that again, but it was good, really, really good. And we've got some mileage now under our belts together, and that's a really cool thing.
Do you and Brooke have any particular routines that sort of foster your relationship, like going for a walk or a drive or something like that?
I think that something that means a lot to me that we do, and she started this when we were dating, was she'll text me back. Sometimes we'll text, and she'll say, with you, which maybe sounds simple, but it means a lot to me. She's she's got my back and she knows I have hers, you know. It's just little things like that I think it's like letting your partner know, hey, I'm here.
Do you text her that sometimes
Yeah.
too?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And other times she's like, I need 5 minutes, you know, because this is how our life is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she's endlessly fascinating to me. Like, I kind of feel like I drive her crazy because, like, what you got to think about, she was alone for a long, long time. And now she has me. And I'm like, I'm like, hi, let's do something. You know, she's like, please leave me alone. Just, can I be in here by myself? Can you just leave? But every day at 4, usually, 4:30, we'll go out on the porch and have a glass of wine and talk for 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And that's been our place to just check in with one another because we're so busy. I mean, with our kids, I mean, you guys know how it is. And you blink and like a month has passed, you know. We've been getting better about going away. We'll go away for a night or two here and there. We're always glad when we do. Just get a hotel somewhere and make reservations with really good food and sleep. It's just watch a movie, just talk, but not be at home because at home, everyone needs you all the time for something.
Right.
Yeah.
And that has been really hard for me because I'm such a homebody, but home is heavy with need.
Yeah.
And I don't have any problem helping the kids or whatever it is that they need, but it is like, wow, I really need to have some time to decompress from all these responsibilities. There's a hotel down here in Franklin. I don't know what it's called, the Harpeth Hotel.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Really nice. We spent the night there and great. We went to dinner and someplace near there, or the Red Pony. And then the next day we came home. This was like 3 weeks ago, something like that. And so we pull in our driveway and you can see into our kitchen from the driveway, and our kids all of them are very purposely like running around in circles in the kitchen and dancing to music because they know we're just pulled in and they're trying to freak us out, which it's working. And I look at her and she looks at me and she goes, well, talk to you in 3 weeks. I said, yeah, because you just get so overwhelmed with the pace of life, you know, and it's funny because it's true. You just realize, man, we really need to get some space to be together, be uninterrupted, you know?
Totally.
So.
Sometimes a step out of the house is really good for one's sanity, right,
Yeah.
JJ?
Yes, it works wonders.
It work wonders.
Thank you for that.
I mean, one of the things that we do for sanity is we just step outside, walk around the neighborhood. Sometimes all it takes is a half hour moving your body in some fresh air.
Yeah, we go on so many walks. In all seriousness, I so appreciate Jeremy's posture as he approaches the latest chapter of his life. He's had to be flexible and let go of what he thought life would look like in order to embrace each new season.
I think you learn that kind of posture after going through the journey that he's been on. Speaking of which, let's jump back in time to 2013.
Okay.
You know, every year the dictionary ends up choosing a couple of special words to add to the lexicon.
Okay.
And in 2013, do you know what that word was?
What was it, Dave?
Selfie.
Ugh, blah.
It's like selfie parentheses gag sound.
Yes, that is the correct pronunciation. I wanted to say before we move on to this, if they handed out an award, like a trophy,
Okay.
to the word selfie, do you know where it would put it?
On the shelfie.
Yes. You're so good at guessing.
Well, we know each other. All right. Enough about cell phone pictures. Let's jump back into Jeremy's story.
Act 2, A Steady Dose of Humility. In 2013, Jeremy's life began to unravel as he found himself not only divorced from his wife, but also questioning everything he knew about his life and family. We asked Jeremy what life was like in the months following the divorce.
Well, it was how you would probably imagine. It was terrible. It was completely disorienting because I had been married almost 9 years and built a life with my spouse, and we had 2 beautiful kids who at the time were 6 and 3. Disorienting would be the word I would use. A pastor friend who I'm still really close with, he likened it to a bomb going off in your face. And that bomb explosion, of course, destroying your world, but that radiates to others who are tight with you and your community of friends, our church, our small group. A lot of pain that radiated from there. I spent a whole lot of time in shock. And I know that now. It's been 7 years. And I've had a lot of really good counseling, which I'm really thankful for. I didn't see it coming. I was shocked. And the shock lasted about 9 months before I really was able to kind of get a foothold under me. When you're in shock, you don't, I wouldn't call it denial, but I just would call it confusion. You start kind of wondering what was even real about the life you had built and who you were and who your family was. And there's just so much sadness to process and so much loss all at once. It's almost crippling, you know. But after a period of weeks, about 8 weeks, I sat down with one of my counselors, and one of the oldest, wisest guys I know. And he said, I know that you have been asking me and the other friends of yours that are your support for answers, like how could this happen? Why this happened? And none of us know what to tell you. Sorry. Now, saying that to you here, it makes perfect sense. Well, yeah, they're not clairvoyant, right? But I was at the point where I was trying to find someone with authority who could make it stop what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find anybody. And so that was really the moment that I pivoted and I realized, well, I haven't gone to the Lord like I've gone to all these other people. And I was exhausted. I mean, I'd lost about 27 pounds, which I don't have a lot to lose here. I really don't. And I was actually, you asked about sleeping. I was sleeping pretty well, oddly. Still is weird to me. Right?
But just no appetite.
Right. Well, I would eat and just puke, which is so gross. But I would just, I think there's something about grief. You just shed weight. At least I do. There was this one night, it was August 7th, 2013, and I couldn't sleep. I had been sleeping pretty well, but I couldn't sleep this one night. And I had this pain kind of on my side, like near my heart, but it just felt like a muscle spasm and it wouldn't stop. So I kept stretching, like moving, trying to get comfortable. I thought maybe if I laid on my side or my back or, switch to my other side, it would go away. I got up and stretched my arms, stretched my chest, wouldn't go away. And it was about 2 a.m, and I just decided, I'm wide awake. I'm just going to go downstairs. And so my family was upstairs, and kids were asleep and everything. And I went downstairs into my office and flipped on a light and made myself some coffee and sat on my rug in my office with my Bible. And I just fell apart. I just cried and wept. And I think for me in that moment, that was when, for whatever reason, that was it. The switch went off in me, and I just started talking to God like I'm talking to you here. And no formal, nothing. And he responded. I was feeling tons of anxiety, as I know now. I felt this warmth in my office. It just filled up my office. And I was by myself, very clearly, but I was not alone in there. And that warmth just settled down on me like a blanket. And it was like I could feel this calm. And even talking about it now, I mean, I've heard my whole life about Jesus, and I talk about Jesus all the time. I read the Bible. I've been a Christian since I was a kid, 8 years old, grew up in the church and all that stuff. And it's like the difference between knowing about someone and actually like running into them is a game changer. And there I was in my pain, in my shock that was still unfolding. And the moment that I turned to Christ, the way that I turned to every other resource I thought I needed more than him, and I'm talking the split second I did that, it was like all the lights went on inside of me in terms of the fact that I am not alone and that God's closer than close to me. He has his own opinions. He has his own personality, his own sense of humor. And he is, above all things, extremely kind. And I think he loves to do kind, loving things for us. And I was just in a place where I could pay attention to that and notice it. So I asked him for help. I mean, I told him I was sorry that I waited so long to come to him. And he responded. He took me into Psalm 91. Now, let me backtrack. I'm Presbyterian-ish. And, I didn't grow up in a charismatic environment, Christianity, or that Pentecostal type stuff. And so for me, and you guys know me from back in the days, probably like, I probably would have made fun of that sort of thing, But for whatever reason, I'm glad that the Lord decided to reveal himself to me in that way, because it completely floored me. So that was a huge night for me. And I've journaled in here, and my little journal here, August 7th is a day of the year that I really cherish, and it's like a holiday for me. It's where my faith in Christ became conversational, two-way. God talks back, as it turns out, and I have never been the same since that night. That was really the beginning of my life starting to calm down a bit to where I could get a foothold under me. And as it turns out, I wasn't standing on anything. I was just being carried. And I was carried for about 2.5 years before he put me back down.
Have you put any of that experience into any of your songs?
Yeah. My new record, Spirit. There's a song called Autumn in Kingston Springs, which is about that night and that season, because that was August of 2013. And that went on all throughout the fall of that fall. There are so many things the Lord did for me just to speak encouragement to me all the time. And stuff you wouldn't even think, why does that matter? Like, why would God do that? Seemingly mundane and ridiculous things. I think the bridge of that song, I say, I know you bind and bottle every tear, but I'm still reeling from the tender words you whispered loud and clear.
Yellow maple, red, and tangerine. Well, it's autumn now, Kingston Springs, where the church bells chime, the rhythm and rhyme, blowing beauty like you wouldn't believe. And all the trouble that you've known so well, like the color on the old hotel, it's gonna wither and fade, wither and fade, wither and fade.
I mean, when I started to hear the Lord's voice, that'll change everything. But I was a single dad for 2 years, caring for my kids. I came off the road. I was helping at our church with music. I was finishing my record, Death in Reverse. I had no way of touring it at all, but I went ahead and put it out. And that felt really, really good to finish that process. During that time, my friend Wayne, he has this gift that the Lord gives him, and he uses it all the time, and it is an amazingly mysterious thing to me. But in October of 2013, he came in my office, asked me if I wanted to go grab some lunch, and I said, sure. And so we went out to get some lunch. And on the way out the door, we didn't even leave the church building to go into the parking lot. We were just barely out of the building, and he just got real excited, and he said, "Well, little brother," that's what he calls me. He's like, I got something I need to share with you. I said, "Okay." And he said, "You already know your wife, and she's older than you. She doesn't live here, and she has kids, and the Lord's just going to bring her to you. But you already know your wife, and he wants you to know, like, you don't need to worry about it. He'll just bring her to you."
What?
And at that point, I thought, okay, now this guy's crazy, like this is insane. And I was like, oh, but of course I wrote it down in my journal because I thought, like, hey. So I wrote it down, and many months went by. I mean, the following spring, I was in the studio at Case and Cooley's house and was finishing up the final vocal, no joke, on my record. And it's a song called "Letter from an Old Friend." I come out of the booth.
Well, hang on. What's Letter from an Old Friend about?
Well, I didn't understand what the song was about at the time. The best way I can describe it is I knew it was right, but I didn't know what it was about. And I knew it was done, but I didn't know what it was about.
So you wrote it.
I wrote the song, yeah.
But you didn't know what it meant.
No, I had no idea.
And so, like,
And the first verse of the song is, "I wish I could find a way back to where it all began, for the future point of view, through the telescopic lens." Because I know in looking back, everything will change. You flip the axle upside down and reverse and rearrange. The chorus is, "I listen through the veil at night. I listen to my soul."
The music in my mind's eye. I sing it through the in-between. I got a letter from an old friend, written in harmony. And take a heart of stone and make it bleed. Make it bleed.
We were recording that song, and like Kason was like, I really dig this. I was like, thanks, yeah, I like it too. He's like, I don't have any idea what it's about. I said, me neither, but it's right, and it just felt right. And so when I finished recording that vocal, I came out and I had a Facebook message from an old friend of mine who I'd known for a really long time as a kid, as a boy. She had heard that I was going through a hard time. She didn't have any specifics or anything, but she just knew that I was going through a hard time with some mutual friends. One of my close friends in Pittsburgh was her dad's music director. Her dad's a pastor. And so he had put my name on this prayer list at church. And so Brooke's dad remembered that we knew each other and had asked her to pray for me. And so she had been praying for me. And the reason she messaged me was she said that she woke up in the middle of the night a couple days ago, she said. And when she woke up, she was praying out loud for me, which she thought that was weird.
Whoa.
And she said, I just would have thought it was weird, but I did it again. It happened again this morning. And so I just felt like the Lord wanted me to message you and let you know someone 400 miles away from you is randomly praying for you, in her sleep. And I said, well, that's really
Okay.
nice. Thank you so much. You didn't think anything of it. Thank you so much. And the next day she wrote me again, and said it happened again. And she felt like the Lord wanted her to share with me what it looked like for her to walk her kids through grief. So Brooke was a widow, and her husband Matt had died about 10 or 11 years prior to this. And she had raised her 3 kids as a single mom and had walked them through this whole series, the whole series of events that happen when you're walking through grief. And so she just started sharing all this wisdom with me over Facebook Messenger. I would write her back and she'd write me. And that went on for about 4 or 5 months. And eventually, I didn't have her number, but I thought I should probably call her and just say, hey, I'm not, because we were talking about some pretty serious stuff, goes into pretty intimate places. And here I am going through a divorce, and I just thought, I just want to make sure she knows I'm not thinking anything weird here or whatever, inappropriate or however you say. And so she gave me her number. I called her on the phone, and I kind of explained all this to her. And she said, well, it just is. And I said, what just is? And she said, the connection between us. And I said, Yeah. That's how we connected. That's how we started talking. And many more months went by before I went to see her. And I hadn't seen her in a really long time. It was amazing. It's like picking right up where you left off in a strange way.
What was that first meeting like?
Weird. We were friends, so it wasn't weird in that sense.
It kind of reminds me of the old pen pals from like America to Europe
right.
kind of thing. And it's
Right.
like, we'll meet at the train station, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Well, actually, we met at Mount Washington in Pittsburgh.
okay.
It's like a platform that hangs out over the side of the mountain that stretches over the Monongahela River.
And you can see the
pointing
city
toward-
lights
Yeah,
and everything.
like the point is right there
Yeah.
downtown.
Okay.
I'm from Pittsburgh. She was living there at the time. And,
Yeah.
and I lived there a long time. So we just decided to meet there. So I flew up to Pittsburgh and had a tweed jacket on, a pair of jeans and a T-shirt and a tweed jacket because it was cold. And I was standing on the platform. I had already parked. And I was excited, sure, to see her. I probably sped, was speeding from the airport to Mount Washington. And I did see her pull up. She had like a blue Honda minivan. And she pulled up and found parking. And so I kind of pretended like I didn't see her, you know. Oh, hello, you know, but I already knew she was there. And it was great. Gave her a huge hug. But then it got really awkward because it was like you're talking about this whole pen pal thing. It's like now you're like literally sitting there with the person, you know, and all the things you can't say over a letter are visual things, you know, cues and different, just the energy of being together was all there. And it was really, really different. I mean, she's my friend, so I was looking forward to seeing her. And I've known her longer than anyone I've ever known in Nashville. But I just hadn't seen her forever. I mean, all that chemistry, everything was there from the start. And I should mention that Brooke is freakishly beautiful. like kind of crazy. She's always been that way. I mean, to be completely honest with you, if you would have said to me at any point in my life, age 12 till now, who's the most beautiful woman you've ever seen? I'm not kidding. I would have said, oh, Brooke Woodworth.
Wow.
Yeah, Brooke Woodworth, for sure. And so that's a nice thing, you know?
Bonus.
Yeah, I mean, she's just very, very beautiful. But we both knew that was it. And when I came back, Wayne, I called him on the phone. And I told him, hey, I just got back from visiting my friend in Pittsburgh. She's pretty amazing. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but I don't know if you remember what you said last fall. And he's like, oh, I remember. And I said, okay. I said, well, she's older than me. She has kids. She doesn't live here. And I've known her since I was 12. And he says, she's a widow, right?
What?
I almost dropped the phone. And I said, yeah. And he said, go slow, little brother. I was very worried about being that guy who goes through a divorce and then remarries. And I don't know if you know anybody like that, but just you hear these stories about
Yeah.
like you take a bad thing and you make it even worse. You know?
Yeah.
I was concerned for my children, who were very little. I was concerned for their well-being and their life in the future. I was concerned for myself. I had a lot of healing to do. So I was in counseling and telling my counselor about all this stuff going on and just getting his insight and wisdom and bouncing things off of him. And so we took it really slow.
And long distance, right?
Yeah, long distance. And as it turned out, another cool thing the Lord did for me was I got a phone call from a church in Pittsburgh. They invited me to come and be like an adjunct consultant of worship, essentially, where they wanted me to come and help them refresh their musical repertoire more towards hymns that are set towards new music and kind of help attach some explanation of why that matters. And it's really beautiful stuff. And that's kind of my wheelhouse. I love that stuff. Having been so blessed by those songs and shaped and formed by those songs, I love helping other people connect with that. And I needed more work. And so it just so happens this church is in Pittsburgh. And I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, but that's so far away. How would that work? And I said, well, you guys will have they have to fly me up there, and I don't know how. And we're thinking every other week for 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
And I said, okay. Yeah, and they wanted me to come on staff there and move there. And I was interested in leaving Nashville and going to seminary up there and being part of this effort that they'd invited me to be as an adjunct and making it more of a full-time job. I mean, I was definitely open to that. But for all sorts of legal reasons, custody of my kids and things like that, I couldn't leave Tennessee, so I ended up staying. But that job afforded me a beautiful opportunity to get to know Brooke and her kids even better 2 times a month, So I would fly up on a Friday and come home on a Monday. And that went on for a while, and we dated that whole time, and it was really, really good.
How long did you date?
We dated about 1.5 years. A lot of it was like, where are we going to live?
Yeah.
Because her kids were in school, my kids were in school. How is this going to work? There are so many questions about, we had 2 houses and 2 of everything, 2 couches, 2 beds, 2 this, 2 that, how are we going to merge our lives? But when we got engaged, we knew we were going to live in Tennessee, and we knew that we were going to get married that summer of 2016. We got engaged in February and got married in June of 16. Now, we didn't have any money. Shocker, right? and so we decided, well, how would we do this? So Brooke's dad's a pastor, and so is her brother. And we just decided that we would get married at the cemetery where Matt is buried, about a mile from their house in Pittsburgh. And we married in June of 16. It's a beautiful day, June 20th. It's actually that year, it was the day after Father's Day. It was a Monday. Who gets married on a Monday in a cemetery? And any of the family members that we had who were nearby, so we both have family in Pittsburgh in different places, and then I have some family not too far from Pittsburgh who drove in, but not even our entire extended families were there, but our kids were there and some immediate relatives. And we just sent some friends from the church that I was helping out at. We just circled up and got married, and Matt's parents came, which was really special. It was all very assembled in a beautiful way, in a pretty mysterious way.
I just think about when you get married as a 20-something,
Yeah.
the bride wants to get done up and you want to have this big party. And now for both of you, it's your second marriage. Mm-hmm. What is that like to get married a second time?
Surprising. Really, really good. We both came to the relationship with so much sorrow and pain that had happened in our lives in different ways. I mean, Brooke being a widow and me going through this divorce, we both had a lot of healing and a lot of grief that would surface anew in different ways, because now we were joining our lives together. When you're in your 20s, you're pretty new at being alive. And, you don't even, when I was in my 20s, I didn't know anything, I thought I did. And I thought I knew a lot. I didn't know anything. I think going into marriage in your 40s, I was 40 when I got remarried, a lot of gratitude, a steady dose of humility. And the awareness that, like my friend Billy Cerveny, if you've heard him say this before, but your cup of joy is only as deep as your sorrow has carved it out. And so our cup is full, but it's full because it's a lot of sorrow that gave it depth. And the Lord has used our marriage to deliver us, to force us to do the work we need to do to heal in relationship with Him. But I feel really fortunate to be married to Brooke. It has not been an easy ride at all, because we've had so much healing to do, and because our kids have had so much healing to do.
On Spirit, there's a song that mentions the marriage in the cemetery,
Yeah,
right?
right. Many waters. Yeah.
And can you say anything about that song?
I wrote that song for her. I wanted us to have something that was ours and ours alone, to kind of honor what she'd been through and to honor and kind of mark what the Lord has done for us. You know, here I am, like a remarried guy in his 40s, musician, blended family. I'm a very blessed guy. I don't deserve any of it. I really don't. So then I go, well, why? How did this happen? Well, God did this. He's not this like prudish, mean, brooding guy who is waiting for you to fail so he can inflict. That stuff is so ridiculous. I get it, and I've been there. But like when you get to know him, it's just so amazing. Baby, there's nothing cliche about you and me. We said our vows in the cemetery. I know it's hard to believe when you've suffered such pain, you want someone to blame, right, for what was taken away. It's a big part of grief. You want someone to pay for what happened to you, right? So set me a seal on your heart, if you know what I mean, until the day breathes or the shadows flee, which is straight from Song of Songs. You're covered in clothes, and everyone knows that shame can be loud, but it's quiet here now.
If I could get you alone, I'm gonna show you love stronger than death, as fierce as the grave, and the fire that flashes, a sacred desire for many waters won't wash it away.
I'm just getting at more and more the idea that like God is near, we're not alone. He is so kind. He made all this stuff, and he wants us to enjoy our lives, and he's all about healing us and renewing us and giving us unspeakably good gifts. And I think he loves to do it. I think it brings him joy to do it. I think God, at the end of the day, someday he looks down on like that day that he created and thinks to himself, I did so many cool things today, but the thing that I'm so excited about is this blessing that I did for this person. They don't even realize it yet. I can't wait to see how they respond. Now on to the next day. Like, I wouldn't put it past him to have those kind of thoughts.
It's like writing a song and having like a little playful lyric that has two meanings. It's like, you haven't even discovered that lyric yet.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's like hidden jewels or treasures, But the truth is, the real treasure is him.
The giver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's the gift. And as it turns out for Brooke and I, doing the hard work of building a life together and blending our families and walking through the healing that has been happening with us is that's God's gifts too. So you just get more and more of a sense of just this person who's doing all these things because it's who he is, and you just want to let him do it.
I just love picturing God being delighted with all of the special little blessings that he gives us.
Yeah, I mean, I know how fun it is to do that for our children, and to picture him doing that a billion times over,
Yeah.
day in, day out. This is kind of amazing.
I think Jeremy's story is a beautiful message for this season in our world as we find ourselves in the middle of COVID-19. It's brought our economy to its knees, and life for many of us is nothing like what it used to be. But we can still trust that God has something beautiful waiting on the other side of this.
Well, that last act was really heavy, but I'm so excited to share the first act of Jeremy's story because this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is the kind of story we created this podcast to share.
Yeah, it almost feels like a book plot or a movie plot where you would watch it and you would say, I don't know.
Yeah, but Jeremy's living it.
Yeah, it's his life.
Act 1 actually starts way back in 1988. If you were alive back then, you might remember The Wonder Years debuted that year. that show just perfectly encapsulated adolescent angst.
Mhm.
Like, I remember watching it as a junior higher and just being like, this guy gets me. But anyway, back to Jeremy's story. In 1988, Jeremy Casella was basically the age of Kevin Arnold.
What? No, I can't do it.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? I love that song.
I know.
I love that version of
Gives
that
me
song.
all the feels
Hmm.
with their like home video footage,
Ugh.
flickering.
Does it get any better?
No.
Let's visit Jeremy's Wonder Years.
Ooh.
We should have called this act the Wonder Years.
I know. Act 1, Brushstrokes. Jeremy spent every summer of his adolescence at a camp in southwestern Pennsylvania. He had no idea how important his time spent there would eventually be. This chapter includes a cassette tape, a diagnosis, and a wink from God. Let's hear from Jeremy.
I started going to this camp when I was 8 years old in Boswell, Pennsylvania. The name of it was Summer's Best 2 Weeks. And it's a sports camp, which is ironic because I'm terrible at all athletics. I always have been, and I was certainly then as a young guy. But I loved this camp. My parents sent me there when I was 8. So in June of 1984, I started going to Summer's Best 2 Weeks. Pennsylvania in the summer can be blistering hot during the day, but at night it'll be 50 degrees. So it's just crisp, beautiful, idyllic place to be. And being a camp, it's removed from your life, you know, with your family and all that kind of stuff. And as an 8-year-old, that's where I became a Christian. So 6 years into my going to Summer's Best, I was 12. In 1988, it would have been. And I met Brooke Woodworth and Matt Smith that summer. I knew Brooke from just being around camp. I don't really specifically remember like the first time I talked to her. I just always remember knowing her. I do remember talking to her about music. I loved U2 even then. I had Joshua Tree on a cassette tape. I think I told her that, and we were talking, and she said that her brother and her had seen that tour. I think it might have been Rattle and Hum that they saw. And Bono had a broken arm, and she was telling me this whole story. And I was a kid. I mean, I remember that. She also had some music of this guy named Brooks Williams, a really great songwriter from Massachusetts, Vermont, up the Northeast. Great songwriter, still doing his thing. Amazing guitar player. I loved his music. And I took this CD of hers, this music she gave me, and I studied it and learned the guitar tunings and the different things. And his playing really influenced me quite a bit.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, like, your music might not sound the way it does if she hadn't
hadn't
introduced
That's
you to
very
it.
true. Yeah, and I actually got to hang out with Brooks Williams many years later and tell him that whole story, which was pretty cool. So, I mean, we knew each other from camp and got to know each other. I thought she was beautiful, but just cool, just a cool friend. And she's so cool.
Well,
We
and
talked-
she seemed like a grown-up because of the age
right.
difference.
Oh, totally. And she was a counselor before I was and all that. And Matt, he was a camper when I first met him. We all were campers, but then he got older and became a counselor much, sooner than I did. Matt was funny, charismatic. He had a baseball hat, and he was from Indiana. And he would fold the bill of the baseball hat in half and stick it in his back, the seat of his pants.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that as a kid thinking, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. He was just very, very funny, very engaging, and a really special guy. Everybody knew that. He was 17. Brooke was 15. And they hit it off and started long-distance dating from that summer on. And I watched all that happen.
Wow.
You grow up, you keep going to this camp.
Yeah.
Brooke and Matt go on and
Mhm.
live their lives. Do you stay in touch after?
We sure do. We stay in touch, and I started making music. And in 1999, 2000, I graduated from Belmont and put out a record.
Belmont's a college here in Nashville.
That's right. And started to tour and figure out how to be an independent artist, which is what I've been doing pretty much for 20 years. And one of the first people I called to book me for a show was Matt Smith. And he booked me, brought me in twice to his church up in Ohio. And I would go up there, played my songs and played his church, and it went really well.
Was he single at that time?
Oh, no, they were married. And they
Okay.
had two of the girls. Maddie was 4, and Grace was maybe 1.5 or 2. And I remember really clearly being in their house because I crashed on their couch or in their guest room.
Whoa.
And and Matt and I stayed up late talking both of the times I was there. We would talk about music, we'd talk about theology. Mysteriously, I wish Brooke were here to share this, but the last time I was there, I left, and I guess that next day or 2 after that, Matt stayed up all night, and he wrote out his funeral, actually. He wrote out what he wanted to have done should he die young.
And was he sick at the time?
Nope.
Okay.
No. Sounds weird, I know, but that's the truth. I didn't know that until years later.
And what did he say in that letter?
Oh,
Do you
know, he wrote that he wanted me to play in his funeral, to play a song called Festival of Friends by Bruce Coburn, who was an artist we both loved. And we were actually had spent a few hours talking about the night before or 2 before that. And Brooke didn't think anything of it. She thought it was crazy that he would, do that kind of thing. But he did. And why he did, I don't know, but he did. Fast forward many years later, Brooke and I are engaged. We're about to get engaged. This is January of 16. Brooke and the kids would have this routine that they did every so often. They would go through Matt's stuff. They had a box of his stuff and go through his journals and, just his Bible and some of his letters and different things that he had in his office at the time of his death. And he had a journal. And on the day he was diagnosed with colon cancer, the way they found it was he went into the hospital for kidney stones. And they did a scan, and that's how they found the cancer. He had no idea. I guess at the end of that day, as I understand it, he had journaled down his itinerary of everything that happened that day. And it's stuff you might expect, went to the doctor, had an MRI, found this cancer, went to the pharmacist, got this pill or that or this medicine, and called our pastor, called this person, that person, called my best friend, called my parents, and he says, Brooke and I talk. And then it says, what if I did die, ? And underneath it says, contact Jeremy Casella. That was April 5th, 2004. And he died in January of 2005. Maddie, our oldest daughter, found that in his journal in January of 16. I have a picture of it here if you want to see it.
What?
Yeah, it's just stuff like that that's just like really, it feels to me like God winking at us. And here's why I tell you that. I tell you that because our marriage has not been easy, but it's been extremely blessed. And I think God knew what we would need to tough it out. He gave us enough just winks and nods and I've got yous for us to, oh yeah, okay, he's with us. We didn't make a huge mistake here, which sounds insane, right, for me to say that, but I'm human, and so is Brooke.
Well, it's like God is sending you that text that says with you.
Amen. Exactly right. That's beautiful. Yeah. Really, really special to have that snapshot of that journal.
Did Brooke know that he wrote that down?
No.
And she doesn't remember?
She'd never seen it. No. Maddie found it.
Wait, so
crazy.
you found it in 2016?
And that was the first time she had ever seen it.
I believe, yeah. That's the first time she'd seen it, yeah.
Wow.
He wrote down that itinerary for his funeral. So when he got sick, when did you find out about that?
Not for a while. They lived in Ohio for quite a while and then moved to Pittsburgh to do racial reconciliation ministry. by that point, I had not been in touch with him for about a year or so. I was still living in Nashville, still doing music, but we just fell out of touch. And he had moved jobs and all this kind of stuff, gotten involved in seminary. I mean, their life was very, very full. And so I found out through my friend Greg that Matt had cancer. I didn't know until it might have been December, and he died in January.
And then, like, he requested that you sing, but did you not?
He did, but Brooke never, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And Brooke never followed up on that. And this is interesting. He died at home. He was on hospice care. And during his last few days, he was in and out of
Consciousness.
coherency.
Yeah.
A couple days before he died, he asked his parents and everybody to come into the room and close the door. And so they all did. Brooke's parents, Matt's parents, and Brooke and Brooke's brother. And Chris, Matt's brother, who I also know from camp. Great guy, who's now my brother. Matt said, Brooke will remarry, and I want you all to accept this man into the family. I've prayed for him. And they all said, okay, And he turned to Brooke, and she was like, no, Matt, I don't want to talk about that. That's crazy. And he said, no, like, you will remarry. And I've prayed for that man. And he said, and you should call Jeremy Casella. He said that in front of all of them. And she thought, well, it's probably he wants him to do something for their funeral because they were making preparations. And so she also thought he's just out of it. So they all left, and she came in a few more times, and he kept asking her, have you contacted him? And she said, well, I don't have his number, and he said, find his number, get a hold of him. I want you to do that. And she never did. Fast forward many years later, I called my friend Greg for prayer in Pittsburgh while I was going through my divorce. And Greg was her dad's music director. And he mentioned my name for prayer. And Roger, Brooke's dad, remembered what Matt said in the room.
Yeah.
And he had an inkling, like, I remember that they know each other. And I remember that Matt wanted her to touch base with him. So I'm not suggesting anything, but it is pretty suggestible. It's pretty wild.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to just circle back as you reflect on how your life is played out. What do you think would have happened if your parents had just chosen a different camp for you to go to? Like, where would you be right now?
Right. Not here. I don't think I'd be here. I say that, though, and there's something about the way this has all unfolded. There's so much undeniable brushstrokes to it that this is the way it was written. And I'm really glad for that. No one wants to have to walk through divorce or death or suffering of any kind. No one in their right mind,
You don't ask for it.
No, but you're given it, or it's the hand you're dealt, however you want to say it or describe it. I'm very easily upset by circumstances or things I can't control like anyone else. But I have seen enough evidence that I really can't deny that there is a force of kindness, love, and logic that just seems to love to bless my family and let us know who he is because he loves us. And I'm kind of made my peace with how he wants to do that. That being said, it's been a journey that has been really hard and excruciatingly painful. I could never have foreseen divorce from my life. I never saw that coming. And yet, the way the Lord set up my marriage with Brooke, it was written out before that even happened. So, if I'd gone to a different camp, I don't know what my life would look like. But I'm really glad I did.
his perspective on the whole thing is just so beautiful.
Well, and there's so much that's completely beyond his control.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of hearing everyone's story. There are so many instances where a seemingly inconsequential moment takes place that we don't even perceive to be important. And it's only in looking back 30 years later that we end up seeing how important that moment happened to be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad he told his story.
Oh, me too.
This is the last segment of our show. It's called
Let's rewind the tape.
Jeremy is a husband to Brooke, and together, the two of them parent their 5 children.
But they wouldn't be married if she hadn't reached out to him to tell him she'd woken up praying for him multiple times.
Because he had requested prayer from her father's church as he was going through a painful divorce.
But they wouldn't have been friends at all if they hadn't met at a camp in southwestern Pennsylvania in the summer of 1988. To find out more about Jeremy, visit jeremycasella.com.
This episode of Instrumental was produced by me, JJ Heller.
And me, Dave Heller, with additional editing by Kyle Henson
Our theme music is my song, Big Love, Small Moments.
that I helped write.
To find out more about me, listen to more of my songs, or watch my music videos, please visit jjheller.com. That's 2 letter J's, HELLER.com.
We'll be back next week with another episode of Instrumental.
So be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.